Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it is great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, we're really glad you joined us. We hope you like what you hear. Our podcast is for people that either want to learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. So today, we're going to talk about how to take responsibility when things are tough in your life. So it's very easy when things are hard to kind of abdicate and play the victim. It's not useful, but it's the natural inclination for most people. So we think about someone like Mel Gibson, who was at the top of his game, a Hollywood actor, famous, rich, married to his wife for 20 plus years, and then it all fell apart for him. So divorces his wife, gets caught with a DUI, makes all sorts of stupid, crazy comments, some of them anti-Semitic, some of them misogynistic, etc., etc. He could have thrown it all away. Instead, he took responsibility for what he did, and he's worked his way back into good graces in several circles in Hollywood. So instead of crying and whining, he took responsibility for his actions where he screwed up and took steps to make it better. And that's really where we want to be. We're going to give you 5 tips with actionable steps to use when you find yourself in difficult situations and wanting to retreat and play the victim. And we're going to show you how to attack it and control what you can control and move through it. So that's the plan. Now, like we talked about, the natural tendency for most people, almost everybody, even people that have trained themselves not to do this, is to blame external circumstances, retreat, blame somebody else, become a victim, and avoid responsibility for the situation. So we're telling you that's the exact wrong approach. By confronting it and taking control of the situation on the things you can control, and we're going to talk about the difference between what you can control, what you can't control, a little bit further. But when you take responsibility for those things and start attacking them, it gives you control, number one, like we've talked about. Helps you maintain focus and helps you build momentum, even if life has knocked you down or kicked you in the teeth. And like our buddy Mike Tyson says in the background there, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And life's going to punch you in the face every once in a while. And that takes us to the third point, that you need to build resilience and learn to grow through those situations. Those are learning situations. And you can become stronger and better and more resilient when you fight your way through them. So the important thing to remember here, though, is you're not blaming yourself for what has happened. Maybe you were responsible for it. Maybe it was completely out of your control and you're just the victim of really bad luck. Either way, it just means you own how you react to them. So this is not about a self-assessment, a judgment, blaming yourself for anything. Maybe you're 100% responsible for what's gone wrong. Maybe you're 0% responsible for what's gone wrong. Either way, you own your reaction to the situation. And that's what we're talking about today. And so here's our tips. We're going to give you 5 tips on how to work through these challenges. So tip number 1 is you got to shift from a why me attitude to a what can I do attitude. So when you're facing something tough, a lot of people, why me? Why is this happening to me? Poor me. Why does this always happen to me? Bullshit. That's not the approach. The thing you got to ask yourself is, okay, what is it that's within my control about this situation? Or what's one thing I can do to make it better or improve it? Not why me, what's within my control, or what's one thing I can do to make it better? So that's step 1. Get that why me bullshit out of your head and switch it to, what do I have control over? What can I do? And then you can use that and make a list. Make a list of actions you can take when you say, what can I do? You're going to have thoughts pop into your head. Write them down. Write them down. Make yourself a list. And instead of dwelling on whatever the problem is, you can focus on acting immediately to start making it better. Let's just take a scenario where you've lost your job. Maybe you were laid off. Maybe you were fired. Maybe the company went bankrupt. Who knows? But you're out of a job. Instead of sitting and whining and crying about it, regardless of the circumstances, maybe you were stealing money from the company and they fired you. Maybe you did nothing wrong and you got laid off. Maybe you showed up one day and the doors were closed. Whatever it is, you can't control it at that point. What you do have control over is how you react to it. So you can focus on updating your resume. You can reach out to your network. You can start learning a new skill. You can start making job applications. There's lots of things that you can do instead of why me, poor me, wah, wah, wah. And what that does is it shifts the focus to solutions instead of the problem, and it helps you regain control and take proactive steps to make it better, which will allow you to work through those situations faster and more efficiently. All right? So that's tip one, step one. Not why me, it's what can I control. And step two is really focusing on controlling the controllables. So when you're in a situation that's tough, take a piece of paper out and make 2 columns on that piece of paper. On the left side is things I do control. On the right side is things I don't control. List them all out. Here's all the things that are related to this situation, and I have control over them. Here's all the things related to the situation that I do not have control over. And then redirect your energy solely to the left side of that sheet of paper. There is zero reason to think about, ponder, ruminate on, or whine about the things on the right-hand side of the page. Does you no good whatsoever because, literally as defined at the top of that column, you cannot control them. Waste zero energy, give zero fucks, spend zero time. Focus on the left side of the page where you have control and commit to saying, you know what? I am going to commit to 1 action a day that's on the list that's going to help me create progress. So, in an example, let's say your family's in a conflict. You can't control how others are going to react. You can't control how others are going to behave towards you, but you can control how you react. You can control your tone. You can control your words. You can control your patience. You can control how you interact with everybody else. And that's going to put you light years ahead of people that are being emotional, letting their feelings get the best of them, and saying or doing things that are going to make the situation work because they're focused on things they don't have control over. You have control over how you react to those things. And when you focus on controlling what you have control over, it reduces your feeling of anxiety, the feelings of being overwhelmed, and it increases your sense of agency or powerfulness. You're going to say, hey, I have control over this. I handled that like a champ. I didn't get sucked into this stupid petty argument. I stayed above it. I stayed calm. I didn't call names. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't yell, whatever the case may be. But you have control over that. And if you need to take a minute and make those lists, what do I have control over? What do I not have control over? Focus on what you have control over. It's the only thing that makes any sense at all. And when things are tough, it's even more important to stay focused on things you have control over. Okay, step number 3, practice radical acceptance. So that doesn't mean that you absorb all the blame for everything that goes on in your life. What it means is you're going to fully acknowledge the situation that you're in without any judgment about it whatsoever. One way to do it is say to yourself, look, this sucks, but it's happening. This is hard, but it's happening. I don't like this, but it's happening. That is radical acceptance. It is what it is. It's one of our favorite statements. It is what it is. You can't unring the bell. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. This is a situation we find ourselves in. We got to do the best we can with what we've got from where we're at. So that is radical acceptance. So one way to help with that is think about there's some part of the scenario that makes you resist taking full accountability or fully acknowledging the situation that you're in. Ask yourself, why am I resisting it, and how is that resistance helping me? Because a lot of times what you're resisting or focusing on are things you don't like that you don't have control over. And the way to do that is you have to accept, I don't like that, but I can't change it. I don't like that, but I have no control over it. So I'm not going to spend any time or energy on it because it's wasted time and energy. What I am going to do is channel all of my time and energy into adapting to the new reality, into controlling what I have control over, into focusing on things I can actually impact. So, real life example, your business fails. That sucks. It sucks. But at some point, hopefully sooner than later. You just got to accept the business is gone and focus on the lessons you learned from the things you went through, the experiences you went through, so that you can apply those to the next chapter or the next thing in your life. What acceptance does is it frees up your mental energy and doesn't allow you to waste it on denial. Instead, it channels it or focuses it on productive actions. So that's why radical acceptance is important, and that's why it works. It is what it is, without judgment. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. I can't go back in time before this happened. Now I have to deal with how life is going forward. All right? Radical acceptance. Super important. Tip number 4, create a plan and take small steps. Like we talk about this over and over and over again on our podcast, and it's super important. Break down the challenge into smaller, manageable pieces, and then set specific, actionable, and realistic goals for each piece. Could be daily, could be weekly, could be monthly, whatever it is. But remember, go back and watch our goal setting. We did a podcast on goal setting, and we want SMART goals. SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And look, a goal without taking action is just a wish. It's a dream. So goals in of themselves are not super useful. We don't find goals super useful. They can be useful if you use them to build a plan and take action towards those goals. But the goals themselves, so what? Like every NFL team sets out every year to win the Super Bowl. That's the goal. Only one of them accomplishes it. It's not because they wished or dreamed or set goals better than the other teams. It's because they took the everyday actions necessary to achieve the goal better and more consistently than other teams did. It's that straightforward. But real world example, let's say you're in debt. You can create a financial plan. You can list the debts out. You can prioritize the repayments, and you can set a daily or weekly spending goal. All of those are things you have control over and you can do right now. And what that does is that plan will reduce the feeling of being stuck, and it provides a path forward. So it makes you feel like you have a way out of this situation eventually. Might not be the way you like, might not be as fast as you like, but we will guarantee you that you will feel better if you have a plan and you're taking action on that plan, because it gives you a sense of agency, of ownership, of control. And it's huge, especially when things are tough. So highly recommend having a plan, working the plan, and continuing to measure the progress of your plan as you work through it. So that's tip number 4. Tip number 5 is to build a resilient mindset using gratitude. So the first step in that is literally just to pick 1, 2, 3 things every day. Maybe it's at the start of the day, maybe it's at your lunch, maybe it's at the end of the day. Doesn't matter so long as you're consistently doing it. And think of 3 things that you're grateful for, even in the midst of challenges. We've told the story before about Pablo Escobar, and he did some of the best and the worst things any human being has ever done as it relates to society. But he was on the run, and he was in a ditch because they were literally trying to catch him to kill him, which they eventually did. But the guy that was with him said he pulled out a transistor radio and listened to the score of the soccer game, and he was all excited because Colombia was winning. So even in the midst of those challenges where his life was ending, Pablo Escobar was like, hey, at least Colombia's winning the soccer game. There's always something to be grateful for. We're not Pablo Escobar fans. Don't freak out on us. But point being, he was in the most serious situation, which is a fight for your life. And he still had things to be grateful for. And then another thing you can do with that is to share that gratitude with someone to reinforce the positivity. So another thing to think about is you compare gratitude with reflection on what tough times are teaching you. You know, there is a silver lining in every cloud. Every bad thing that happens can bring some good. So in a real life example, even if, let's say you're struggling with your health, or you've got a health issue that you're struggling with, you can express gratitude for the supportive friends, the available treatment, personal strength you're showing. There's ways to find moments to be grateful for, even in the toughest of times. And what gratitude does is it shifts your focus from what you don't have or the scarcity of things to abundance or the things you should be grateful for. And that improves your mindset and your resilience. So gratitude is super, super important. Okay, so there's going to be some barriers to you taking responsibility to things. So we want to talk about those and give you ways to overcome those. So you might feel emotionally overwhelmed. You might have so much shit flying at you that like you just can't sort it all out. You can't keep track of it. It's just overwhelming to you. Using mindfulness or grounding techniques to calm your emotions. So mindfulness is I'm going to be in the moment. I'm going to focus on what I've got right in front of me. I'm just going to be present and I'm going to clear my mind. And that will help you with those feelings of being emotionally overwhelmed. Fear of failure, that's another one. What if this happens and the whole thing goes sideways and I lose everything? You got to reframe failure as learning. That's the best thing you can do with failure because you're going to experience failure. It's going to happen in your life. We'll break the suspense for you. It's going to happen. And there will be things to learn through those failures. And if you listen or talk to any successful person, they will almost always tell you about their failures and what they learned from them versus their successes because they don't typically learn much from the successes. Don't get me wrong, the successes are great. It's what we're all after. But failure is actually the best teacher in the world. And you've got to learn those lessons when you go through failure, or you're going to repeat those same failures over and over and over again. And then a third common challenge is you're doubting your own ability to change the situation. And a good way to deal with that is to surround yourself with supportive people and accountable people. Because supportive, accountable people are going to help you be supportive and accountable, and they're going to help you through those tough times. So those are some barriers that can prevent you from accepting responsibility, radical acceptance of responsibility like we talked about. That's the trick to this whole thing. So that's the episode for today, guys. I mean, really, just from a recap perspective, tough times are there. We're going to have to fight through them. Taking responsibility empowers us to get through them and get to a better spot. And it's small, consistent actions that lead to the biggest changes in your life. Rarely will you make a quantum leap from here to here. Most of the time, it's small steps to get to where you want to go. And it's those small, consistent actions, focusing on what you can control, that are going to help you get to where you want to be. So our tip here would be just pick one. Pick one of these things and focus on it. Maybe it's radical responsibility. Maybe it's controlling the controllables. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Pick one of them and make that the focus of what you're going to do going forward. And by incorporating that, it'll help you take action and overcome the inertia of not being able to take action. So, something to think about. Adversity is a fact of life. How you respond to it is going to make the difference between whether you're successful or not successful. Successful people face adversity, they tackle it, they push through it, and they get to a better spot. Unsuccessful people wilt in the face of adversity, and they let it overwhelm them, they let it stop them, they let it prevent them from moving forward, and that's not where you want to be as a person. So that's the episode for today, guys. James puts it up over here every day. Don't forget to go to our website, saltygingertalk.com. Got all of our podcast episodes available there. We've got links to all our social media accounts there. We publish a newsletter every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website. We think it's a fun little newsletter. It's a 5-minute read in the morning, cover some current events. We make some jokes. We're pretty sarcastic. We think it's a good way to put a smile on your face in the morning. And then don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to our podcast on whatever channel you consume it on. It's super helpful for us if you're able to do that. So that's it. This episode will air on Friday. So we hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will see you guys next week.